welcome to City Life. It's good to have you here with us today. Today on the program, we talk about research into building design in the wake of the Christchurch earthquakes. We find out about a fairly different way to de-stress. We chat about the highly successful Carry On Court and health and fitness with Bevan. But first on the program, Antony Gough. Good to have you here.
Hi, very good.
I'm sorry that I missed you last time. I'm sure it was a very good chat with Mr. Pete Smith.
Oh, I'm never short of something to say.
Yeah, I know. You are looking wonderful today, I must say. Dazzling.
Oh, thank you very much.
So what's the latest in the city at the moment?
Well, in the last week, a week ago, everything changed in the city. Sarah has suddenly engaged with the business people and said, we want you to help us pull the city back to life. And so suddenly they're engaging with people. I've got my pass. I've got my pass.
Yeah, you were
month.
saying last time I was talking to you that you were certain you were going to get that pass. So it's really good to see that you've got it. Was it hard work to get that pass?
No, that is suddenly, as I say, as of Tuesday last week, they said you've applied for 15 passes for all your staff and tradesmen. Come and collect them. They're here waiting. So we go out and get photographed and get printed and. That is wonderful. So it's allowed us all to engage in getting into it, because unless we get in with our business people and sort things out, the city won't come back to life. Now, the message I'd say to our viewers is those businesses that have been knocked back like me time and time again, go back. You'll get in, and they'll let you get into your businesses so long as it's not a terribly dangerous building. Okay,
what do you think was the turnaround there to change this?
I think it's Roger Sutton's influence, undoubtedly. He's a commercial person. He said if we don't engage with the business community, we're never going to get out of this. And that's absolutely wonderful. All
right, so you've been in with your pass.
Yes.
What have you been seeing?
Right. In the last week, there's been a huge number of buildings. I'd say there's probably 20 buildings currently being demolished at the moment. Cashel Street, we're taking 3 down. We've got 2 excavators working on them. I've got some photographs I'll show you. On Manchester Street, there was a section where there are 8 excavators working. Unbelievable amount. And there's some areas that are wastelands. We'll show you some of these photos. Very, very interesting. But it's a hive of activity. Absolutely unbelievable amount of activity.
Any changes to your buildings, or I guess the restart 2019-11 after June 13's quake?
No, don't seem to be. We seem to have survived quite well along there, which probably is a reflection that the Oxford Terrace bars and restaurants, which are mine, have actually stood up very, very well. Yes, they've got some serious cracks. Yes, we've got to do some enormous amount of earthquake proofing, but we're still quite confident that we will be able to get those up and running by the end of October. Yeah,
so restart 2019-11 is still on track?
Yes, we're still going flat out. It's taking a deep breath, I have to say, but we're now able to get in and start doing things, and that's what a difference. Before
we start looking at those photos, just tell me how you're spending your days at the moment.
Right, well, I'm chairman of Central City Business Association, so we had our weekly board meeting yesterday. We also engaged with all sorts of tradesmen. I was meeting my builders. When they were demolishing 3 of my buildings, I had to rush back with the electrician to sever the wires between 2 buildings, one that was staying up and one that wasn't. It suddenly started pulling out of one building. So I'm in and out like a yo-yo. I'm also retrieving items for tenants in these buildings that are being demolished that otherwise they wouldn't be able to get out. So and I do that in conjunction with the demolition crew who say, right, the time's okay now, we'll get in. What is the thing that the tenant really wants? And that's a really, the look on the tenant's faces when I present them with their items. Can't believe it.
What's it like for you being inside those buildings, the ones we've only seen photos of with, sides falling down? What's that like?
It's a bit scary. It's very dark. I was in the Trotadero bakery and all the food's still sitting on the shelves. It's a different colour from what it used to be. But it all looks as though somebody's just sort of walked it out the other day. It's a very sort of spooky feeling. And it's very, very quiet inside these buildings at that time, because they stop all the excavators for us to get in and retrieve things like servers and tills and personal wallets and that sort of thing. Like Trotadero bakery was being given an awful time by Inland Revenue saying, why aren't you putting your GST return in? Why haven't you got the correct pay records? It's because they're in the building. He now has them.
Okay, that's good. Any other businesses you've still got to get things out for?
No, I've got yes, I got everything. I got into Val's clothing and I got all of her lay-bys, all of her patterns out. Unbelievable. it was extraordinary.
Wow, that's amazing. All right, shall we have a look at your photos?
Yes, they're fabulous.
Okay.
Right. So if we have a look at these photos, if we zoom in a little bit on this. Right. First of all, that's a photo in Cashel Street. If I turn this around, whereabouts are we? There we are. I wasn't certain which camera. Right, that's Cashel Street, and that building, that's as it was just a few days ago. This is the back of it. You can see it's all sitting up in the air. This is the white building on which side? This side. That's Trotadero Bakery. This thing is 123 Mart. This was DeVal's. If you see this garage down the bottom here, that's where I actually cut in to get into DeVal's shop. Next photo, there it is. The excavator roaring through the building. That was only taken 2 days ago. That's straight out into Cashel Street now. And then here, just turning around in Cashel Street, looking from the other side, I've circled where the excavator's coming through. And you can see that those last two buildings down to the Bridge of Remembrance, we're hoping will stay. So
I'm just trying to think. So that's on the, when you're looking towards Bridge of Remembrance, that's on the right-hand side.
Cashel Street, correct.
Yep.
So that's the tap room at the far end, and then you've got places like Cashel Tie, Dimitri's. Radar Records is the closest shop that will remain. Mayer Shoes is in there. The person has these fabulous shoes like what I'm wearing.
Yes.
You'll see what they look like.
It's beautiful.
That's what I wear. Awesome shoes. So he's going to be coming back on, and you'll see him. Now, these Cashel Street shops, what they look like right at the moment, they've just torn the front off those buildings, and it was at that point they let me to get Trotadero's servers and everything else. And that's right in there.
Right.
That's where I was. So very scary.
Gosh, that is really scary.
So that's what the buildings looked like 2 days ago. The building, the 123 Mart, which is here, that's already on the deck. That's already down. And this next building, by the time you get to see this, we're filming on Friday morning, that will be on the deck by Friday night this week. So that is all going down right now. This is in Cashel Street. There's huge demolition happening in Cashel Street. This is looking down Cashel Street from the Bridge of Remembrance end. These are these buildings that are coming down of mine at the moment. So you'll see those are all just pouring down. This is taken early in the morning, about 8 o'clock in the morning. Just took a couple of photos because I think a lot of people, I get it up the right way.
There it is. I
you can see
that.
here, the photo that I'm holding here, this was taken straight after September earthquake, cracks along. This is Fitzgerald Ave, and then here you'll see the liquefaction, how the road is settled right down.
So this one here was September?
Yep, and you see the road cracked, but it hasn't dropped.
Right. And then so what do they do after September? Do they...
No, they didn't do anything. That's just dropping down through liquefaction. They haven't yet opened that road yet.
That's amazing.
So I just thought it was worth seeing how the ground is actually moving all the time. Oh, we just lost something there, didn't we? This is corner of Chum and Madras. Those buildings haven't yet been touched, so you can see a huge number of buildings that have yet to be demolished. And they've got a lot worse with the June thing. And we're running out of time. This is Manchester Street. What you're seeing is back of Mackenzie and Willis. This is Colombo Street near Farmers. But what is noticeable, here's the iconic bar in Manchester Street. And this photo, the next photo shows 8 excavators in a row on Manchester Street, only taken yesterday. And this photo shows a wasteland from Latimer Square all the way down to Manchester Street.
Oh, gosh, that's Gloucester Street.
Yes.
Oh, my goodness.
So there's huge changes happening in the city. In another week, there'll be... it will be quite a changed city.
Oh, goodness. OK, so what's next for you?
Well, we have to move into... You have to turn around and do things like fix your offices, if you have a look at this.
What's that one there? Is it...
That's what my office looks like right at the moment. And then you have to start repairing buildings, and that's what we're doing right now.
All right. Antony, always good to see you on the programme. We'll catch up with you in another couple of weeks and get some more photos of Central City that we can't see.
Good.
We'll be back after this break. You're back with City Life, and I'd like to welcome to the programme John Hare. Good to have you here.
Thank you.
And tell me about this paper that's been written in regard to building design in the wake of the Christchurch earthquakes.
Right, I think it was an attempt, the Royal Society sort of pulled it together with a lot of input from Structural Engineering Society and IPENS, with a view to trying to provide, I guess, sort of an informed layperson's guide to earthquakes, what's happened, why buildings have behaved as they were, as they have.
Right.
So it's, and just, you know, for anyone who wants it, basically.
So what is an earthquake-prone building?
Right. An earthquake-prone building, it's a very complicated definition by law, but essentially it's a building which has got roughly a third the capacity of an equivalent new building that we've designed today. And typically that includes a lot of the older brick buildings we're familiar with, but it can also include a lot of other buildings, concrete buildings, not so much the newer ones obviously, but certainly older buildings that may not have the strength that we require them to have by today's standards.
Now, earthquake-prone buildings, is this something that was ever considered in Christchurch, well, before September?
Yes. Earthquake-prone buildings have obviously been around for a long time, and the notion of earthquake-prone buildings has been there. It's been covered under the Building Act for some time. And under the Building Act, each of the different local authorities is required to have its own policy to require perhaps owners to upgrade their buildings or to assess them, however it might be. So in Christchurch, there's been policy in place for a very long time, but typically it's been what we call a passive policy, which means that when owners bring their buildings in to do some work on them and apply for a building consent, if they change the use or if they want to do some other work on their building, then they'll be required to upgrade. But they haven't sought to go out there and identify the buildings and force owners to upgrade for any other, just, you know, because.
Okay. Excuse me. Now, I don't want to talk about specific buildings, but what was the reason for buildings to collapse in the earthquakes?
Well, you know, put very simply, we had an earthquake which subjected the buildings to greater loads than they had been designed for, or in some cases not even been designed for earthquakes, than they could handle, and so the building's capacity was exceeded. In more specific terms, you know, a lot of our buildings are made from old, brittle materials which we would no longer use, and those ones are particularly susceptible. And so when the shaking occurred, you know, the ground literally moves under their feet, and the buildings are subjected to greater and greater stress, and some of them reached their collapse point, unfortunately.
So is it to do with the ground and also what the material it's made of? Is it the two factors?
Yes, very much so. And you know, the ground movement in itself is obviously the cause of the trouble, but some materials by nature are more prone to difficulties than others, and so older buildings that weren't designed specifically for earthquake and buildings made out of brittle materials, particularly like unreinforced masonry, brick, are more susceptible, and so they have been prone to severe damage or even collapse.
Given all the shaking that's been going on in Christchurch, how do we know how much earthquake life, I suppose, is left in these buildings, left here in the city?
Good question. There's a lot of work going on at the moment to bring together assessment guidelines for people so that they actually have a means of, engineers have a means of determining that. In many cases, the buildings may retain quite a lot of residual strength, but what we're concerned about at the moment is the extent to which the reinforcing in the concrete may have been fatigued by having so many cycles of loading. And so engineers are at work on methods at the moment for going through testing the steel as they need to ensure that it has got some life left in it, and that it will be good not just for the earthquakes it's been through, but obviously earthquakes to come. And so that's, as you can imagine, it's quite a complicated process technically. The guidelines that we're assembling at the moment are sort of, it's a new thing for New Zealand to actually have to go through this level of assessment and repair, but it's all coming together slowly.
Are you going overseas to find out more about this, or is it happening locally?
Well, the guidelines have been assembled locally that we're going to use to assess the buildings, but by the same token that's been prepared using the offshore information. So we've been in contact with people in the US who have been through this before. In particular, we have a lot of issues in common with them, and so we've been making particular reference there. And we've certainly had a pretty good string of visiting experts through to help us out with some of those things. Any
idea when this will be known, like these details will be released? It's
got a long, slow life, unfortunately. The assessment guidelines are being released progressively as sections of it become available, and that's happening over the next few weeks. The first parts of that, the building assessments themselves, there are engineers at work all over the city at the moment, but concentrating initially on probably the central region where there's buildings that are hopefully waiting to be occupied once people can get back in there. And it'll be progressively moving out to some of the, first of all, the larger facilities with a lot of people, and ultimately to most commercial facilities around town. That's a long process though.
Yeah, sure. Now, what are the implications for people with insurance going forward?
Insurance is a big wait and see, I think. However, I think we would be naive to expect that we'll go back to exactly as it was before the event. Once again, if we were to look at overseas practice, so for example in the United States, which has very similar issues to us, particularly in California, residential insurance is not nearly so commonly used because it's expensive and because they have quite high deductibles, the excess. And so I think some information I've heard, there's about a 13% of the population actually has earthquake insurance on their homes, unlike here. So I think there needs to be a lot more reliance on people actually making sure they've done all they can to reduce the risk for themselves, less reliance on insurance, and that'll apply both for housing and also for commercial. But we have to wait and see which way the industry leads us.
Okay, now just finally, just going back to the buildings, is it, I guess, a really, really good time for tenants to be proactive in the buildings that they're in and just to check their buildings out?
Absolutely. I don't think anyone should take anything necessarily on trust, and so we've seen the red, yellow and green notices there. They just tell us what someone's observed about the building. They don't tell us what's behind the ceilings or underneath the wall linings. And so tenants should be proactive, ask the owners what's happened, what level of assessment they've done, ask to see the reports to assure themselves that the building is as safe as it can be made reasonably.
Okay, but should they go to the owners, or should they really go to someone who doesn't have an interest in the building?
Well, all owners should be doing reports, and they should be getting structural engineers to evaluate their buildings. The structural engineers have got a professional, ethical obligation to do a decent job. If they are uncertain, they can certainly get their own review of that to be done.
All right. John, that was really, really interesting. Thanks for going on the program.
Good. No, you're welcome.
After the break, Jeff Morton.
Welcome back to City Life, and with me in the chair today I have Nicola from the District Health Board Public Health Unit.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. Now, what role does the District Health Board's Public Health Unit have to play in the rebuilding of our city?
Well, we are really concerned about people's health and their long-term outcomes, and of course health is something that starts where we live, work, learn and play.
So it's just not hospitals and doctors?
Exactly.
Okay, so it's the environment.
Yes.
Tell me a little bit about that.
So we're very interested in the way in which we're able to move about spaces, about how buildings are designed. Am I able to see green and have that sense of well-being that comes from things being well designed?
So it's roads, footpaths?
Yes.
All the environment that we actually occupy.
Exactly.
Okay. Now, how would you work with this planning process? How would the guide work with the planning process itself?
So the guide you're referring to is our integrated recovery planning guide that's been developed with the Christchurch City Council and input from lots of other people around the city. It builds on planning work that has been done in previous years, but we've specifically thought about these things in terms of the earthquake.
So
and
since
what it means
the earthquake, there's been quite a bit of input.
Yes, so after September we created the original version of this, and people have had a chance to feedback, and obviously following February people were very aware that these things were incredibly significant as we moved forward, and so version 2's been released and people are able to use it as they look at their plans or contemplate planning.
Right, so how does the guide actually work then?
Okay, we know that there are lots of things that influence our health outcomes long term. So there are things about the way, as you mentioned before, our roads connect spaces that are significant for us, our ability to get food, to remain healthy while we move about our city. And so the guide offers an opportunity to look at the built environment, the natural environment, and it asks questions in those areas, social environment, economic environment. What are things that we need to think about as we're in this recovery phase? And then it also looks at 14 dimensions of health.
Right.
And asks questions that are specifically related to them. So they are things like housing, transport, neighbourhood amenity, all those kinds of things.
Not only sewers, water.
Yeah, so all those infrastructure things, there are things to think about, but these are kind of the above ground things, the things that help us hang on to our health, because it's obviously much easier to keep it than it is to try to
now,
get
you've
it
got
back.
a wee story to share with us, because you were involved with the planning in, was it Sydenham and Littleton?
I was very fortunate to have an opportunity to attend what was called an inquiry by design.
Mm-hmm.
And it was for Sydenham and Littleton, as you said. So a whole lot of people got together to provide technical advice, the kinds of things that needed to be considered before planning could really get underway. So we had a 4-day process whereby everyone started by presenting the kind of technical detail.
Right.
So for us it was about saying, you know, we know that not everybody is treated equally in recovery, in the sense that people who were vulnerable before are often even more so now. So how do we address that as we look at our planning?
So that's people and transport?
Exactly, putting people at the centre of everything.
So in other words, Littleton is like a little microcosm. Has that been a template for what will happen in the city?
Well, what happened with the inquiry by design was that first of all they went into the community.
Yes.
So there was very real communication. The people were able to say what were the things that were really important to them. And that has been able to feed into that process. So people said, you know, different things that were important to them about retaining the heart of their home.
Of their home and their
but
community.
also things that they would like to see.
Yes. So then where can people get a copy of this particular guide?
Right, well, the guide is available online at the Community and Public Health website, but you can also email irgfeedback@cdhb.govt.nz to have hard copies as well.
Good. Nicola, we're going to follow this process, we're going to follow the guide, and we're going to have you back to talk more about this.
Thank you. I
Thank
look forward
you.
to it.
Now I'd like to welcome to the programme Richard Turner and the Queen of Hearts with a different take on stress relief. Now Richard, tell me, what are you up to?
Well, a few of us got together to put on a stress relief concert for Christchurch. It was at the CBS Arena on the 16th of July, and it's called the Mad Hats Tea Party. The idea came about just to put something back to the community.
Okay, and the Queen of Hearts, you're all dressed up nicely over there.
Yeah, it's going to be insane. It's going to be really, really insane. Basically, it's going to be like a circus, but instead of sitting and watching, the circus is happening like everywhere. We've got stilt walkers, we've got contortionists, we've got aerial silk artists, we've got Concord Dawn, we've got Min Wee, we've got a really, really, really talented props man who is going to make some really awesome stuff, like giant lollipops and all sorts of really cool stuff like that. It's going to be pretty epic.
Yeah, it's going to be pretty mad. So where did the idea come from?
Well, originally it came through, I was approached by someone who wishes to remain anonymous. One of the event organisers, she had this idea with a number of people to put on the show. It originally started off with my involvement trying to find a bar for a location for a band to play. It started off relatively small. We were looking at...
Does anyone know where there's a paddock? Yeah, something, you know.
It was the idea, yeah.
Pretty much, yeah. Just somewhere that a good group of mates could get together. And then the idea just escalated. More and more artists and people wanting to help out. And then it started to snowball. And then we had national acts wanting to be a part of it. CBS Arena got a news of it, and we approached them about having a venue. Once we got the venue, we had Circo performance artists from CPRT that had nowhere to actually perform.
Yeah.
And we want to try and keep as much of the Cantabrian and entertainment spirit going. So this was a good outlet for them all.
And we've got Japanese drummers. I just thought I'd throw that in too.
Really?
Can't forget them. We've got 20 Japanese drummers
We're
as well.
thinking about Japan as well.
That's amazing that all these people from all over New Zealand are wanting to get involved. Are you paying for the venue?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so
Yes.
that's your biggest expense?
It is, yes.
It's huge.
But I mean,
It's not about the money though, it's
No.
about
Okay.
Christchurch.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if we lose money, we lose money, but I'm hoping that, Christchurch turns up.
Yeah.
And
Well, it's for them.
about it.
It's for the entire city, and
Yeah.
we can speak for ourselves in regards to us being that stressed. And I understand that. I mean, there's a lot of people with bigger problems than us, and we just want to show our support to the community. We're getting a lot of I've got a lot of press over New Zealand about the negative side of what's happening to Canterbury and Christchurch, the problems of the EQC, liquefaction, all these limiting factors, and people are forgetting that it's actually kind of demoralising us, and it's giving us a label that everyone in Christchurch is quite negative. Well, it's not the case. We put this together to really say, hey, we know we're having a bad time. Other people are having a terrible time, but come to this, forget your troubles just for one night. Let's be united. Let's show New Zealand and the world, in fact, that we stand together, and that Cantabrian resilience and strength is still alive. It's not as easy as I've seen on the news that people can say, why you just up sticks and leave? Why you just go? We can't. This is where we live. You don't run away from problems. You face it head on, and that's what I understand Cantabrians have always done.
Yeah.
Why should things change?
Basically, when the world's upside down, because it is, you stand on your head.
Well, in this part of the world, we are upside down.
It's just amazing that young people are just, I'm not bagging young people or anything, but it's just so great that you're so passionate about, your city and what's going on here and the people.
Yeah, well, basically, people have to remember that the city is the people. It's not the buildings. There's a lot of buildings around town that, people are really sentimental about, but we've got to remember it's all about the people.
Okay.
And bringing those people together is what this is all about.
So how can people find out more about the Mad Hatters Tea Party?
There's a number of ways to go. The one we've been advising to, if you just look up the Mad Hatter Tea Party with 2 Ds on Facebook, you'll be able to find it under the events category. Very easy to find. Be part of the other 8,000 people that are saying they're attending.
Yeah.
So we've got a lot of Christchurch coming. We need more. We need the rest of you to come along and enjoy the show.
Do you have security?
We do. One of the first things on the list now is security.
Yeah, all right. And there's Best Dressed?
There is.
Yeah.
There's a competition running throughout the event for the best dressed. Whoever gets singled out will be the winner of a $400 makeover, courtesy of Trash Glam. I believe it's $400.
Yeah, they make cool things like these dreads.
Okay.
And gas masks.
All right, so that's next Saturday, the 16th, 5 p.m. until midnight. And that's Mad Hatter Tea Party on Facebook.
The Mad Hatters Tea Party.
All right, Richard Turner and the Queen of Hearts, good to have you here on the programme.
Thanks, cheers for having
It's
us.
cool what you're doing.
Yeah.
Cheers.
Yeah.
Talking to Roddy McKinnon last week from Canterbury Christian Funerals, we touched on the issue of eco-funerals and embalming. And Roddy's here today to share with us. Hi, Roddy.
How are you doing there, Jeff?
Pretty good, thanks.
Good.
Now, pardon me, last week we talked about eco-funerals and embalming. Why do we need to embalm or not to embalm?
Short answer is we don't.
Okay.
There's no law in New Zealand requiring embalming. Embalming is essentially a cultural choice.
Okay.
New Zealand, interestingly, along with North America, are probably the premier exponents of embalming. We're extremely good at it here because it's been in our culture for quite a while, and a lot of our embalmers are professionally trained. In contrast to Australia, where perhaps 70% of people are not embalmed, which is interesting given the climate they have, and that presents some challenges for them, but most of their, when I say most, that 70% would be refrigerated until the body is refrigerated until the funeral time is appropriate.
Right.
Whereas here we tend to have and it's becoming stronger, that we want to interact with the deceased.
Yes.
We want to be able to have them at home. That's very important, and I would say in about a third to 45% of our clients, the their loved one comes back home to them. So embalming has three main functions. There is preservation.
Right.
Okay. There's a presentation aspect.
Yes.
Okay. And there's basically it's what we would consider a hygienic or a health and safety component.
Right.
As in, it is a body.
Yes.
It's no longer living. Natural processes take over.
Of course.
And so we need to be able to ensure the health and safety of everybody who is involved in the funeral. And
so that's a New Zealand law, is it?
No, it's not.
No.
There is an act, but it's not required. There are considerations, health and safety considerations that are enshrined in law, but they don't pertain to embalming per se. They pertain to the safe handling of the deceased.
Okay.
Embalming is just one part of it. I think one of the things we need to touch on is that for most people, embalming conjures instantly the Egyptian model.
Right.
Okay.
Exactly.
We get the
Wrap
whole
the mummy
wrap the money, and it's not accurate.
No.
Number one is that was a desiccation process.
Yes.
Okay. And it's completely irrelevant to what we do here. We embalm here with a chemical fixation method, which is essentially we add some chemicals to the body's natural circulatory systems to allow natural fluids to be fixed and made inert in place.
Right.
All right. One of the things that we can do with embalming is significantly improve what often nature doesn't do very well. When somebody dies and the heart stops beating, the blood literally flows out of the tissues to the lowest point under the influence of gravity.
Of course.
And if someone has died face down, which happens more often than not, then there's going to be staining in the tissue just from the natural blood cells, the colour of them. One of the things that embalming does is remove that colour and retain a more natural colour. We don't aim to make them look alive, but we do aim them to have that pleasant sort of normal affect.
Right.
And also the feel of the skin. We remove that sort of damp, cold, clammy feel.
Exactly.
I know this is sounding a little bit, there's probably a few people sitting there going, okay. But the whole idea is that we want you to be able to interact with your deceased, knowing that they are safe to handle, there's going to be no odour, they are pleasant to look upon, and they are as you remember them.
That's the important thing, because if they've died in straitened circumstances...
Oh, absolutely. Death is very undignified.
It is indeed.
It is.
You need your loved one to be as you remember them.
It's that final picture memory.
Yes, it is, exactly.
A lot of people say, oh, I want to remember them alive. That's great. I had a grandmother who spent her last 2 years fully into dementia.
Yes.
And she didn't look that good in those last years in the rest home.
Exactly.
When she'd been presented by a member of our team, and it wasn't definitely nothing to do with me, she was at peace, and she was the beautiful grandmother I remember.
Exactly, that's right.
And there was a distinct... And I brought my 2-year-old daughter in to see her and to kiss her goodbye and say goodbye, because I thought that was important, that they saw Grandma, she'd gone, and there was that sense of closure and moving on. And that's what embalming does for us.
And they'd remembered her as that lovely person.
Absolutely. And so from a cultural perspective, it's important to us that we acknowledge what we're losing, who we're losing.
Exactly.
And having that interaction assists that process.
Correct. Roddy, thank you so much for sharing, that aspect of death with us. I think it's very important that we understand. And next week we'll touch on another topic.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Roddy. Canterbury Christian Funerals. Canterbury Christian Funeral Services 2008 Limited, 24 Sheffield Crescent, Burnside, Christchurch, 35 888 07.
Welcome back to City Live, and I'd like to welcome Jeff Clark from the Court Theatre. So good to have you here.
Yeah, it's good to be here, thanks.
Now, Carry On Court last Thursday, how did it go?
It was a fantastic night. It was just sensational. We had a completely full house, all 700 seats full. Everyone was there to have a great time. The actors were and performers, the band, the orchestra, everyone was just having such a fantastic time performing, entertaining and being entertained again. It was a spectacular night. And from that concert we raised over $65,000 towards the court. So
that is incredible.
Yes, no, we were really, really stoked. Another piece of great news we were able to announce on the night was that we've had our first significant donation towards the Shed Appeal, $500,000 from Pub Charity, which is a spectacular...
That gives me shivers, oh my gosh.
I know. It's great. I mean, we have to raise $4.62 million, so we've still got a way to go, but it's a huge start, and we're just hoping we can keep that momentum going through and open by the end of the year.
Oh, that is amazing. So had you applied for this grant, or did they offer it?
Well, it's kind of a bit of both, really. I mean, we pub charities were regular sponsors of the theatre, and basically when they heard about the circumstances we were in, they basically said, well, we'll see what we can do. And then there were some discussions going on that took place well above my head, but the outcome was fantastic.
Now, 700 seats sold at the Aurora Centre for Carry On Court. You need to do more of these.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, we're looking at doing a lot of different fundraising activities over the next few months. We've obviously got our next couple of productions in the Aurora Centre. We've got Five Women Wearing the Same Dress opening on the 14th, and then that's a shorter season than we normally do. It only goes from the 14th till the 23rd, and then at the last half of that season, from the 20th till the 23rd, we've got our kids show on as well, which is Hansel and Gretel. Awesome. So we've got entertainment for the grown-ups and for the kids as well.
Tell me about some of the things that, you know, some of the performances from Thursday night.
Oh, it was great. I mean, we had George Hare and Paul Barrett, who flew down from Auckland, especially to do the concert. They didn't, you know, no one in the show got paid. And and George actually took a week out of rehearsals for a show that he's in order to come and perform. So it was just great to see the support from the community there. I mean, they did things from all kinds of the shows that we've done over the years. They did stuff from Sweeney Todd, they did stuff from South Pacific, more recent things like, you know, La Cage aux Folles, and they ended, of course, with a big number from the producers.
Oh, did they?
So that was great, yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you know, these performers putting their free time into this kind of gig, people in Christchurch paying $100 to come along to be entertained, that must be heartwarming.
It is incredibly. I mean, it's really great to know that the court means as much to the greater people of Christchurch as much as it does to just the artistic community and the people who work there, because we're just sort of like a small part of the wider Christchurch artistic community, which is part of the national artistic community, which is also part of the city. So it was just seeing those people, you know, many of whom are court theatre regulars, back in the foyer going to see a show. Our wonderful David behind the bar serving drinks as fast as he could. And just it was great to have that back again after so many months away from it.
All right. Now, other fundraising ideas? I know there's a really good idea that I quite like.
Oh yeah, we've got a great one which we announced at Carry On Court, which is called Host, which we're doing at the start of spring from the 1st till the 4th of September. What we're asking people to do is to host a dinner party at their house. And they decide what they're going to serve, you know, what they're going to charge for it. So it can be anything from like a simple fish and chips dinner or you know, a 5-course meal. And they basically invite their friends and guests along to have this dinner. They charge what they think the dinner is worth, and then that money that they make from there is donated to the Court Theatre's fundraising appeal. And we'll send someone along to say thank you, tell them a wee bit about how the construction's going. And
really, at each dinner?
At most of them, yes. I think they'll probably
famous people from the Court Theatre.
Oh yes. I think
Clark.
Yes, absolutely.
Cool.
I think I'll probably be the ones that charge $10 a head, and then people like Philip and Ross will be going to the sort of higher sums. But
cool.
The thing is that every donation we receive, we are incredibly grateful for. Even after February, before we had launched this appeal, we'd had people start giving donations completely unsolicited, and so we hugely value that. So we've been sending thank you letters and contacting the people that have made significant donations and thanking them personally, because that's what it's about. Theatre is entirely about connecting with people. You know, theatre doesn't exist unless there's not just performers but an audience to have them. So it was great to have that on Thursday at Carry On Court. It's something we're hoping we'll have for our next 2 productions, and something we're hoping we can keep connecting with people in the months to come before we open at the end of the year.
And you've still got the jesters going?
Yes, we do. We've got them bouncing around the city like a pinball. We've been performing in places like Elmwood for the next couple of weeks. We're performing at Hagley's open stage. And then I think after the end of the month, after the end of July, I think we've got another couple of venues lined up as well.
That's cool.
Yeah, it's all keeping us busy.
Yeah, now there is a website specifically for Court Theatre fundraising. What is it?
Yes, well, at the moment it's just courttheatre.org.nz. We're still working on the fundraising website in order to help people make donations online and things like that. So if you visit courttheatre.org.nz, it'll link through to all the other things we've got going on.
Oh, that's so great. $500,000 from pub charities, over $65,000 raised on Thursday night.
Yeah.
You're going to get there, I think.
I think so. Yeah.
Good to have you on the programme.
Good to be here. Thank you. Finally
on the program, Bevan, to talk health and fitness. Always good to see you here.
It's always good to see you too.
Now, what are we talking about this week? Blanket statements?
Okay, so I thought I'd start by telling you about how athletes talk to each other. And so if you get a bunch of athletes together, let's say I get a bunch of guys I train together, or maybe there's a new person to the group. And when you get a new person, let's say we're all runners, and we all get together and we catch up and we're going to go for a run. Now, when you talk about your athletic ability of a runner, you'll talk about the time that you have achieved in races. So let's say you're a new runner and you come to this group, but you're an experienced runner and you've come to this group of people and you begin to know each other and you'll kind of say, what kind of runner are you? And an experienced runner will kind of give you the time that they've achieved in races. So they might, like, for example, I'm about a 2:40 marathoner. So I'd probably say, well, I'm a 2:40 marathoner, and so on. They define the way their language, they talk about their athletic ability based on real facts. So it's a real accurate description of what they've achieved as a runner, and so they can kind of really define that clearly. You talk to people who haven't exercised for a long time, and they use blanket statements. So if we look at the athlete, they're really specific in what they've achieved, so it's a really clear marker. If I were to say to someone who hasn't run for a long time, I say, what kind of runner are you? They go, I'm a bad runner. And that blanket statement means that cuts out all the actions that can go alongside it. That covers all aspects of running. Now, if you think you're a bad runner, what are you going to do? You're not going to run, are you? Because you put this blanket statement that says, I can never be a good runner. Yeah. And if you look at a lot of people who, if you look at the athlete, they define themselves based on their times. If you look at the person who has an experience of exercise, they can often have a lot of blanket statements around the language they use. The downfall of using blanket statements is they're really limiting, because if you think you are one thing, then you can never be the other thing. So if I'm a bad runner, you can never be a good runner, because that's installed in who you are as a person. So what can we learn from this, and what can we take from this in our everyday experiences? The first thing we need to do is start to become aware of the language we use. So, like, let's say you are someone who struggles with exercise. You're actually better off just to spend some time being aware of how you talk about exercise, and notice when you use blanket statements that really do put a blanket over everything about you in the area, and then realise that that's actually not going to move you forward in the direction that you need to be going. So let's say you aren't a runner and you want to move towards running. Well, instead of saying I'm a bad runner, say I'm an inexperienced runner, but I can move forward. Okay. You get what I mean? And so then, or I'm a runner who can do 1K. And so you're actually defining exactly where you are based on what you know about your ability right now. Now, your ability right now is probably pretty limited, so you're not going to see yourself as a 2:40 marathoner, but that way you can still see progress, and you can see that there's steps forward in the right direction. And that's what athletes do. Like I look and I go, okay, 2:30, 2:40 marathon, I'd love to get a 2:38. What do I need to do to achieve the next step? So then I can be quite intelligent and analytical about how to achieve those steps. Whereas if I say, I'm a bad runner, well, what are the steps? There's no steps. And so, your first step is to go, I'm an inexperienced runner who can then, who can walk a K. So what's the next step for me? The next step for me is to try to do a 2K walk, or to do a walk with a bit of a run. And then you can, if you're defining clear boundaries about your ability and have great awareness around that, you can then move towards actually improving in the areas where previously you've had blanket statements and have been really quite limiting. So what are the benefits of sort of changing that mindset? Yeah, well, it really is just allowing yourself to be open to doing the thing that you've always blanketed. Like if you put a blanket over, a negative blanket statement over something, you're just never going to move towards it. And the benefits, we can talk about the physical benefits that will come along getting out and exercise, but for me it's a lot about the mind. It's how we see ourselves does really have a big effect on how we'll act in this world. And so if you see yourself as being bad at something, you're never going to move towards it. You know what I mean? And so the benefit is that it actually opens up your mind to actually, I'm not a 2:40 marathoner, but I can get out and do a 1K run. You know what I mean? And the benefit is that it opens up your mind to be realistic about where you are right now. And when you can be realistic about where you are right now, then you can actually set realistic targets to move you forward towards the next step. So if you're a bad runner, you're never going to do anything. If you're a person who can run 1K, well, the next step is 2K. What do I need to do to get to 2K? Well, I could probably add an extra run in a week. I can go see a PT about my technique. I can do some core work and so on. So by having defined, the definitions of yourself based on true ability, it's clearer to see what the next steps in your progression is.
Is it the same thing as saying that I can't do this? Because I'm really weak in my upper body, like triceps and stuff, and I'm like, I can't do this. Is that a blanket statement as well?
Totally. So
okay,
because
changing that.
So because you told me not to ask questions. So she goes, don't ask me questions. I'm like, I don't want to ask questions. So, but you know, like if you say I can't do triceps, well, you probably can, but just how you define where that is.
Yeah.
So you probably see it as the next step is really big, but could you do one more? In triceps, well, you probably could. You know what I mean? And so right now I can do one tricep dip, or maybe I can do two. You know, and like
I could do a few more than that, but
exactly.
Just getting that 12 in the whole set. Now, CC magazine is out, and you're
sensational magazine.
One of our
Which camera I'm looking at? Which one of it is?
All of them. And it's a very, very beautiful.
What's on the cover here? What's this?
This is the New Zealand International Film Festival that's coming out.
Oh, wow.
It's being announced on July 25th. Thank you for asking. Beautiful picture, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah.
I saw that Black Swan movie the other night. Have you seen that?
I haven't.
Don't watch it with your mother-in-law.
Yeah, right. Okay, a little bit awkward. Yeah. Now, what is it? What's your focus in this one? This
Do you know what?
month?
Can you remind me?
It was very positive. I remember when I
actually think I've talked about this stuff on the show. I think I don't remember. I wrote these like a month ago.
Yeah, this was.
We should have done some prep on this.
I told you we were talking about this. Anyway, CC
objectives.
Is out.
I think let's talk about objectives. Yeah.
You can see it cbscene.co.nz. Thank you, Bevan, for coming on the program. Maybe next time you'll brief on what you write in CC
we should
magazine.
do some planning.
We always plan. Now, that is City Life for today. You can get in touch with us. You can email me, kaneta@ctv.co.nz. You can call us 3777 033, or you can write to us, PO Box 1100 Christchurch. You can check out all the episodes of City Life on demand. Just go to ctv.co.nz and click on the YouTube logo. We're also on Facebook, CTV City Life. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you tomorrow.